The JBL Quantum 600s are JBL's entry-level wireless headset and one of only two wireless options they offer, with the Quantum 800s being the bells and whistles model. Stay tuned for a review of those soon. Although primarily a PC headset, the 600s also work wirelessly with the PS4, PS5 as well as Mac. Additionally, you can connect them via a 3.5mm audio cable to almost anything. So in this JBL gaming headset review, on top of putting them through their paces and letting you know how they sound, I'll also be covering their performance on the PS4 and Mac, as well as a few other devices via the audio cable. If you're in the market for a wireless gaming headset but don't want to trade in your Lambo, then the JBL Quantum 600s might just be the perfect fit. Like all of my hardware reviews, the conclusions I've come to are based on a couple of weeks' worth of testing. I don't just open the box, read the specs, and tell you how squishy the ear cups are, although they are quite squishy. I like to integrate the products I review into my setup to get an idea of how they work in a real-world scenario. So for the past couple of weeks, the 600s have been my go-to when it comes to gaming audio. Before we talk about how they perform and what I do and don't like about them, I'll quickly burn through the specs for those of you who just want the facts. The JBL Quantum 600s are a 2.4 GHz wireless headset. They have 50mm dynamic drivers, a frequency response range of 20Hz to 20 kHz, and the microphone response range is 100Hz to 10 kHz. Charging time is 2 hours from flat to full, and you'll get 14 hours use out of them before they need recharging, provided you have the lights turned off, and I'll cover battery life and charging in more detail later on. The weight is 346 grams, which is about average compared to other wireless headsets in this price range. Speaking of price, these retail for $229 Australian or $149 US. Yes, Australian prices are bullshit. In the box you get the headset, the charging cable, a 3.5mm audio cable, the USB wireless dongle, this little windshield foam thingy for the microphone, and a bunch of warranty stuff. Okay, so that's the boring stuff out of the way, let's talk about compatibility. As I mentioned at the start, you can use the Quantum 600 headset with just about anything using the audio cable, but when using them with the wireless dongle, they're only compatible with PC, PS4, PS5 and Mac. On top of this, it's worth noting that not every feature is available if you use them with something other than PC. DTS:X and JBL Quantum surround sound are PC exclusive features, meaning that on anything but PC, the audio you get is stereo. The game and chat dial for mixing chat and audio volume is also reserved for use with PC, so you'll need to dive into your connected system's audio settings to adjust the game and chat volume when connected to anything else. If you're looking for a headset to use across a bunch of different systems and don't mind giving up surround sound when not using them with PC, then the 600s are quite flexible. If you're looking to use them exclusively with something like a PS5 or Xbox, just be aware that you'll be giving up some of the headset's best features. In the case of using them with an Xbox, this means giving up wireless and the microphone, as the microphone won't work through a standard 3.5mm audio jack. This doesn't mean they sound like trash with anything but PC, but it's worth keeping in mind. There are other dedicated console headsets around the same price which do offer surround sound. Okay, so how do they sound? Provided you have them set up properly, and we'll get into that in a minute, I've been impressed with the audio quality. For games, they deliver satisfying explosions, crisp dialogue, and a clear separation of the lows, mids, and highs. Like a lot of gaming headsets, I find them a bit bass heavy for TV, movies, and especially music, because the mids and low ends kind of blend together, which drowns out the highs. This isn't really that noticeable when gaming, but for music it can make them sound a bit muddy. This is all heavily dependent on what you're listening to, of course, and on the plus side, your favourite gangster rap will sound suitably thumpy. You can tweak the mix using the Quantum Engine software, and it provides a bunch of different EQ settings, including some presets like a first-person shooter profile and one for clarity if you don't love how bass heavy they are. You can create your own EQ settings too if you know what you're doing. On PC, this headset really comes alive with both DTS:X and JBL Quantum Surround. These both require the Quantum Engine software, which is why they're a PC-only feature. Quantum Surround delivers a pretty damn impressive soundstage for a headset in this price bracket. The software lets you enter your head size too, so you can really dial it in. If you're primarily going to use these with PC, then I'd say that the surround sound alone makes them a compelling option. In terms of performance, I've never encountered any clipping or distortion regardless of how loud I have them, or which EQ setup I have. This is a pretty loud headset, but even at max volume there's virtually no sound leakage. This makes them ideal for use in small spaces with other people you don't want to disturb. Now, this is not a noise cancelling headset. Nevertheless, background noise attenuation isn't bad at all. This can be both a blessing and a curse because it does make it harder to hear yourself talk. So while they won't disturb people nearby with sound leakage, if you're talking over game chat you might be louder than usual. I haven't noticed any interference or dropouts while using them, which was a problem I experienced with my Astro A50s. JBL actually provides the wireless frequency they transmit on, so if you do have problems, troubleshooting should be a little easier. Nice one, JBL. Latency also isn't an issue. The connection between the dongle and headset seems solid, and I've never experienced any kind of lag. Strangely, JBL doesn't list the range anywhere in the specs. I've tested them around my house and I can get about 15 to 20 meters away from the dongle before it starts to lose signal. This distance is of course affected by walls, so in theory you could get further than 20 meters if you had a direct line of sight between the headset and dongle. Okay, so far I've had mostly positive things to say about this headset, so let's talk about the thing I like the least, which is updating the firmware. They will work straight out of the box, but to get the best out of them, especially the microphone, updating the firmware is highly recommended. The PC-only Quantum Engine software is pretty intuitive, and as far as this kind of software goes, the UI is nice enough to look at, but updating the firmware can be a real bitch. I actually couldn't get it to work at all with my older laptop, it just kept failing at the last step regardless of what I did. If you're having issues, make sure the Quantum Engine software is up to date. The application downloaded from the site won't necessarily be the latest version, so you'll need to update it within the software. You might also need to disable Windows automatic driver downloads in the Windows device installation settings, although when I swapped to a newer machine this wasn't necessary. If you're still having problems, you could also try a different USB-C cable or different USB ports on your PC. I think my issue may have been that the USB ports on my old machine were just too slow. JBL really needs to sort this out, because if you look online this is a common problem, and I think a lot of people won't persist to get it working. They'll either use them without updating the software or simply return them. This is a shame because when they're updated they sound much better than when they came out of the box. Thankfully, on the hardware side of things, getting them up and running is simple. For wireless, you just plug the dongle into a PC, Mac, PS4 or PS5 and change the output settings to the Quantum 600 and you're ready to rock. Out of the box, it should already be paired with the dongle, but if not, pairing them is quick and easy. Alternatively, you can plug them into just about anything using the audio cable. It really doesn't get much more straightforward than that. When it comes to battery life, I'd say that the quoted 14 hours playtime is pretty accurate. This is with the lights off, which has to be done in the software. With the lights on, at a guess, I'd say it's something like 8 to 10 hours playback. The headset automatically turns off after about 10 minutes to save power if it doesn't receive a signal, and it will play a noise when they start to run low on juice about 15 to 20 minutes before they cut out on you. Charging them is done by the supplied USB-C cable, or you could just use a generic cable you already have. It only takes 2 hours to charge them, although you can't use them wirelessly while charging, which is a bummer. However, you can use them with the audio cable while charging at the same time. It requires 2 cables to do this, but at least you can still use them. The headset doesn't need to be turned on using the audio cable either, so if they're completely flat they will still work like an old school pair of headphones when wired in. I've recorded this section using the headset microphone so you can get an idea what to expect. The microphone is unidirectional, which should limit the amount of background noise it picks up, and the quality isn't bad for a headset. Now, I have updated the firmware, which makes a big difference, so if yours don't sound right, definitely update them. Muting the microphone can be done by either pushing it upwards or by using the mute button on the left ear cup when wireless. This button is pretty handy if you need to quickly mute yourself for a brief moment and don't want to flick the mic up and down. It sounds pointless, but it's a subtle quality of life feature I really appreciate, and I like the little red light that indicates when it's muted too. Overall, I found the 600s to be a comfortable headset even for extended sessions. There's plenty of adjustment and flexibility in the headband, so they should suit a variety of different head sizes. I really like how the ear cups turn too, which makes them comfortable to wear around your neck. When they're on your head, the ear cup seal is snug, and even after hours of use, the headband doesn't feel like it's trying to touch your brain. The ear cups fit my average size ears perfectly. The sizing seems reasonably generous, but your mileage may vary. They can be a bit hot, especially with extended gaming sessions. The leather-wrapped memory foam ear cups don't breathe that well, and I did find them warmer than I would have liked. So in conclusion, I like the JBL Quantum 600s as an entry-level wireless headset. They're comfortable, they sound good, and they're compatible with lots of different systems, so long as you don't mind losing some features. When using them with PC, they offer outstanding surround sound, and if you're after a headset to use primarily with PC, but want to use them with other systems too, then you'd be hard-pressed finding anything else at this price range that sounds this good. For use with the PS4 and PS5, they're a little less competitive compared to similar headsets like the Astro A20s or Turtle Beach Stealth 700s, simply because you lose surround sound. Bearing that in mind, these are a bit cheaper than those headsets, and overall I think they're good value for what they offer. If you found this review helpful, why not drop it a like? And conversely, if you didn't, well, there's a button for that too. Subscribe to stay up to date with all my new videos, hit the bell notification too, because apparently that does something, and if you really want to go all out, you can support me on Patreon. Otherwise, thanks for your time.